The Grammys.
Yep, it happened.
The Grammys. Yeah, we're talking Grammys. Season 2, episode 3, Suburban Kings. We'll talk about the Grammys, but we got some other stuff too. But first, as you know, Renaissance men, it's not just art, but also sport that we're interested in. Talk to me. And I haven't primed you for this because I guarantee we can have some good chopping it up about this one. The trade. You're in Texas. I'm from California. The trade heard round the world. What was your first thoughts and where did you see it?
Yeah, I saw it scrolling through the Instagram. And when I first saw it, I didn't think it was real. I've seen these fake trade alerts come through where they put somebody in a different uniform, and I just wrote it off. But then immediately I went to ESPN, and confirmed it, and I was in shock. I was so dumbfounded. I was like, "How did that happen?"
Right.
That was my initial feeling, was shock and just confusion.
So, for those of you not up on the trade, the Los Angeles Lakers traded Anthony Davis, one of the best 7-footers in the league in the paint, the eyebrow. He's on the backside of his career, still having a great year. Don't get me wrong. He's kind of in the twilight of his prime. And you would expect him to start at his size in the game he plays to start his career to come down a little bit in terms of his impact. And he has a terrible injury record. Last year he did great, so I don't want to take that away from him.
Right.
And then you have Luka Doncic, 25 years old, not quite in his prime. We're not seeing the best Luka. And he, number 1 draft pick, franchise player for Dallas. Mark Cuban, former majority owner of Dallas, now minority owner, was just spoke the world of him. People that were basketball nerds, and I've worked in sports technology and analytics, and I watched Luka from afar. I was one of the guys who was like, he's the best pick in the draft that year. He ended up going number 3, I think.
Didn't they trade Trae Young for him though? Didn't Atlanta initially?
Yeah, but it's kind of a little shady thing that was on the side. It wasn't like, hey, we like him. It was more like kind of guaranteeing picks and those sorts of things. So it was just part of a trade. But I grew up in Sacramento area, and they picked Ayton from, I think he was playing at Arizona, big man, which you get the old NBA. You tend to pick the big man because a 7-footer is always going to be 7 feet tall. Yeah, so you can always count on that. So I think they picked Marvin Bagley, who was like he was kind of like, oh, he's going to be the next Kevin Durant. He's a demigorgon, athletic 6'10", 6'11" guy.
Yeah.
They picked Bagley instead, and they had the second pick, I think. And I think it was, and they could have had Luka, and they've always done well with Eastern Europeans. There's a big Russian and Eastern community in that part of the world in Northern California. They have Vlade is GM, it's a good culture for someone. Like, he would have been the franchise, and he would have loved it, and he would have, and it was like, that's whenever I see Bagley play, I'm like, freaking Kings.
Yeah.
You had Luka, but now he's at the Lakers.
Oh man, it's wild. I wonder though, he's been dealing with that calf injury, that strain, and that can get complicated. Do you think that played a role in this? Like,
I think Dallas is, if it's a smart move, I don't know, we will see. The way I look at the NBA right now, so there's a couple things. We'll talk overall NBA viewership is in a decline right now. So that's a top, I want to touch on that. I think that might have something to do with it. And the way you win a championship right now, the type of personnel you need is really different. People always go, oh, shoot too many threes now. That's really not one of the issues. But where the game is shifting, it's shifted to skill. It used to be, in the early days, it was, you had jump shots, people shooting jump shots, layup, real fundamental, actions. There wasn't much dribbling. And then it turned, got more physical in the era of Jordan, where he was just, wow, he's a freak athlete, and freak athletes started to rise up. And the way that to push back against the freak athlete was get more physical. So 90s basketball was physical.
Detroit Pistons,
right?
Bad boys.
And then in that physicality, what it transitioned to what the Spurs did in their dominance was like, hey, we're going to break the game and play high IQ, move the ball, and they dominated for a while. It was kind of boring, which is part of the decline story. And then where it shifted from then is it shifted into, okay, you can make it rain 3-pointers and you're going to do well. Houston did it, obviously the Warriors. And now it's moved to like skill. Every guy in the NBA is hella skilled. And whoever has the tallest skilled guys, that's the future. That's where it's going. Nikola Jokic is the most efficient, most skilled on paper, the best basketball player we've ever seen, full stop. No one's putting up the numbers that ever in history of the game. He's the statistically the best basketball player we've ever seen.
But he's so underappreciated.
Well, because it's not sexy and people don't understand it,
I think it is, though.
Yeah, if you love the game. He's much what? When I open League Pass and I'm looking, if Nuggets are playing, I'm watching. Because I want to watch Luka. And that's kind of where I am now. I want to watch players during this time of year. So who's playing? I'm always going to watch him. I like to watch Luka, although he's been injured since Christmas.
Right.
But yeah, so that's where it's going. So I think Dallas sees that. And we can't have, if they keep him the way his contract's written, he would be the highest paid player in the league next year. And a skilled guard, as good as he is, that's not the future. The future is big. So I don't think Dallas is done. They were just trying to get that paycheck off their books.
Sure.
Get a big man who can kind of defend the skilled big man. That's what Davis can do. Mm-hmm. And he's not as mobile as a Wemby or a Chet Holmgren or Jokic. Yeah. So I don't know. And I don't think the Lakers are done. I think the deadline is tomorrow. They have till tomorrow to make some moves. And here's my prediction. The Lakers are going to deal LeBron and Bronny to the Warriors.
No way.
And the Lakers are going to get, because the Warriors, as you know, have really developed. They draft players that most people aren't looking at and turn them into just elite players. That's their history. Mm-hmm. And they have 2 big men that are like that. Trace Jackson-Davis, 7-footer, skilled, big dude, not as mobile. And they have Quentin Post. Looney's a little older. And Looney's turned into like one of the best offensive rebounders, just dependable defender, just a rim protector. He's good, but he's not going to shoot. But Quentin Post, they have one of those guys hiding in there that they could probably send over to the Lakers, and the Lakers become contenders for Western Conference Championship if they can get a Quentin Post or even a TJD for LeBron. So that's my prediction. We got about 24 hours to see if that happens. So,
well, one thing that nobody's talking about, I'm interested to see, is how De'Aaron Fox, meshes with the Spurs. And I know I could see it going either way. I could see him kind of fading away, or reinvigorating a little bit of his magic that he has. I mean, he's a great basketball player.
In front, end to end, he's fast player in the league.
Yeah.
Can he turn into what Wemby needs, which is a guy who can get Wemby the ball and set up the offense and that sort of thing? He's not going to be a big gravity guy. He's not going to take the gravity away from Wemby. But if he can learn from Chris Paul and Chris Paul's twilight years how to be that kind of elite point guard, floor general, court, whatever you want to say, that's the way the league is shifting. That's what Fox needs to be. He's never going to be a Steph Curry. He's never going to be this, scoring machine. He's just that size player, doesn't do it anymore.
Yeah. And then they snuck in this morning, and it seems kind of neither here nor there, but Kuzma went to Milwaukee for Middleton, which...
I'll take Middleton over Kuzma twice on Sunday. Yeah,
I would too. So it seems like Milwaukee may have lost that one a little bit.
But the league was in a slide. So the conspiracy theory here, this is kind of last point before we wrap up with sports. The conspiracy here is that Adam Silver was involved in the Dallas Laker trade, because my hypothesis that I've been saying since like last year is my hypothesis for why league viewership is down is because the best teams and the best players are, and more specifically, the most interesting players, that people really want to follow, buy jerseys. They're either in their twilight. So Steph, LeBron, KD, they're almost done, or they're on small to mid-market teams. Oklahoma Thunder's like the best team. Cleveland's the best. Those are the best teams in the league right now.
Yeah.
And who cares, right?
Right.
And the best player in the league, best player in the world, Nikola Jokic, plays for Denver, which, and you could, at his best, Luka he's an MVP candidate. So, and now he's on the Lakers.
Global
That's good
team.
for basketball.
Yeah.
That's good for the league. You need an interesting player. The other component of my hypothesis of why it's down is your best players are foreign right now. Right. And so is Wemby going to change that? Wemby's must watch for me. If somebody better isn't on League Pass, I'll watch Wemby because it's just captivating to see a human that size.
Right.
I want to see him. I haven't seen him live yet. But so Luka to the Lakers, that's good for the league. So the conspiracy theory is, the league kind of backdoor dealed this and okayed, because the league can block trades. And one reason they might block trades is, hey, you didn't let anybody else take a bid on Luka. And you see GMs around the league complain, hey, we didn't get a shot at Luka. What's up?
Yeah. Well, you're not the Lakers.
The league needs him in LA, Chicago, or New York.
Right. Because they need the global attention.
One of those four teams has to have not just a good player, a good chance at getting deep into the playoffs, but they also have to have a player that's interesting to publicly. Like like LeBron is interesting. He's got a story that's interesting. It's been a while since we've had an interesting foreign player. And I don't know if Luka fits that bill. Wemby maybe. So we'll see. I love basketball no matter what. I watch all kinds. I mean, if I'm not doing anything and the local high school is playing one night and I got nothing to do, I'll go watch that. I just love the game.
It's fun, man. I was at basketball last night, watching some basketball, high school. I did get a chance to see Wemby. I saw him last week. And man, the thing that I left feeling is, man, I wish they could have Pop back. And I don't know what it's going to look like or when or how, but it seems like they have still, the ceiling is they haven't reached, and coaching, I think, will help elevate them. And they weren't getting him the ball like they needed to. And that was the first thing that came, like the second thing that came to my mind leaving is like, man, there were several times that he needed to get the ball. They needed to get it to him more. And his rebounding or his all round game is what was so impressive. He'd grab a rebound, throw the ball, 2/3 down the court. Their guards would attack and score. It did seem like defense was nowhere to be found that much. Wemby had some blocks. They played the Clippers. And then the last 3 minutes of the game, Harden and Kawhi Leonard, they just took the game over and they just put their foots on their throat and they never let up. It was pretty cool to see Harden just shut the game down at the end.
That's fun. I love the game. On Pop, one interesting nugget I like, and I don't know how accurate this is, but it's pretty close. I just asked ChatGPT, and 9 current NBA head coaches were either played for Pop or were an assistant under Pop. That's almost a third of the league. Wow. Not counting the assistant coaches sprinkled around the league that came from Pop's systems. Yeah. So he's done more than I think people realize for the game. I think I'm happy I'm happy for him if he could rest, just sit back and enjoy, the rest of his life. He's done enough. You've done enough, Pop. You deserve a rest. Awesome. I love the NBA. So let's get into it. So article came across my feed. Okay. We've talked several times how one of the biggest things I miss about not living in Austin currently is the Draft House specifically, which is a theater that kind of has changed the game in theaters. And once you go there, you're spoiled. So I've had to go to regular civilian theaters, if you will. And the thing that's annoying is when does the movie freaking start? Right? Commercials, forever. I swear, and I'm going to time it next time I go to a movie. So I hopefully I can get to The Brutalist here in the next week or so. It seems like it's about 40 minutes. And the movie lists to start at 6, but it starts at 6:40.
That's crazy.
And I'm old. I'm getting old, man. 2 hours is already a lot to sit in the movie. Yeah, it's almost plus I want to get there a few minutes early, get my seat. So I might be there at 5:50. Now we're getting close to an hour late on start time. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So go ahead.
Let's say, depending on which movie theater you go to, you don't even just get like the trailers. You get like car commercials or like orthodontist,
local dentist in there, that sort of thing.
injury lawyers.
So a Connecticut official wants theaters to post the accurate times. So in Connecticut, a lawmaker there, Senator Martin Looney of New Haven, wants theaters to actually publish the start time of the movie itself, which I think would be great. There may be some follow-on effects for that. That'd be cool. Like, when does the movie actually start? I don't mind some trailers, especially if they're relevant. Like, if I'm going to see a good movie and I see 2 or 3 trailers for other good movies, often that's the first time I see those. And sometimes they're, some of those trailers, they're really good. Like a really, like, I want to see the Dune Prophecy trailer in a theater. I don't just want to watch it on my computer. So hopefully, hopefully there's a good movie out whenever the trailer drops this summer or something like that I see. But like, it gets, how many times have you been in there and a trailer ends? You're like, okay, the movie's going to start. And then you get that little screen that says the following trailer. And you're like,
just keeps going. Well, last movie I remember seeing, I took my youngest and my daughter, my 2 youngest, to go see Despicable Me 3 or 4. I don't know what
7. Despicable Me
12.
18.
And it was at the discount cinema. And I got him the popcorn and the candy, and we got seated, and I noticed they were done with their candy and eating of the popcorn before the movie even started. And I was like, come on.
Yeah, no, it's a little much, but I think the following effects, I know theaters are struggling, and I know the local commercials are probably an important piece of revenue for them. I don't know. I think the way forward is food, beverage, and liquor. Yeah. That's how they're going to make money. That's,
Yeah, the AMC in the local mall here in Austin, the good mall, has a bar, like liquor bar in the mall, in the movie theater, like, aside from the concession stand. And there's actual seats there, and you can walk up and order yourself a,
Yeah, that's common. That's the way to go. Make money somewhere else. I don't want to watch commercials, especially now that we stream. I mean, the only time I see commercials in my personal life is when I watch live sports. So, yeah, no, interesting article. It'll be in the show notes. That'd be cool. I think it's unlikely to happen because it interrupts capitalism, and that's those kind of bills don't work. So, but it is what it is. Okay, Grammys. Thoughts on award shows first. Remember when what MTV Music Awards kind of was, it was hot, like late 80s, early 90s. Mm-hmm. Like what were your thoughts on that one? Just kind of as a kid, teenager?
I liked it because they had the announcers and the awards of the people that I was interested to see. It was like just these current, younger, edgier, people getting up there on the mic, and then the performances I always look forward to, because you could tell they put thought and effort into it, and they really wanted it to be remarkable, talked about, and those performances were usually pretty exciting. And then, near the end of my MTV Awards watching, it seemed like it became a thing where you wanted to watch it to see who was going to be the one that was going to hijack like a moment. And you wanted to see it. This was before you could, like, just
Tim Comerford climbing the scaffolding.
Yes. And,
for no reason.
The last one was when Kanye, interrupted, Taylor Swift.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
I'm going to let you finish.
See, or there was like, somebody would try to, make out, like get the kiss with like the, the number one actress at the time,
Right.
So, that was before you could just really catch the highlights in your feed.
You had to watch it back then. Yeah.
You had to watch it.
Yeah. And it was exciting. It was different. It mixed it up. Now the Grammys, as a kid, what did you think about, think back to when you first saw the Grammys or something? Because even then there were some good performances, but you had to watch it. It was on Sunday night or Monday night. There was no catching it later on YouTube or clips on social.
Yeah. It seemed like there were always the artists that would, sweep awards. And unless I liked that artist, I wasn't compelled to like be super tuned into it or intentionally watch it. And it seemed like they weren't the artists that I was excited about, and maybe it seemed like they were older, like for the older audience. Although with these, it seemed, now that I'm older, it seems like these are younger.
Right.
I was disconnected as a kid to the artists that would win it. Now, as an adult, I'm disconnected to the kids that are winning it.
Well, you did mention what's funny is I got to jump right into this one. The Rolling Stones. The Rolling Stones won a Grammy for best rock album. And again, I didn't even know they had an album out. I didn't know they were still capable. Apart from Keith Richards, from getting in a studio for long enough to make a song. And so they won. Funny enough, I think Kendrick Lamar won more Grammys this year than Rolling Stones have ever won. Right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's 2025. Their album, just to spoil it, Hackney Diamonds takes best rock album. Okay, they won a Lifetime Achievement Award in the Grammys because you had such a long, amazing career.
Yeah,
you've done so much. We're going to give you warranted. What year do you think that was?
That they got it?
Yeah, when did they get a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Grammys?
I would say like in the late 90s, early 2000s.
1987.
Jeez. What?
Yeah. So you're talking almost 40 years ago.
Oh man.
And they just put out an album. They won the Lifetime Achievement Award 40 years ago.
A lifetime ago.
It's like most bands aren't even going to have a career half that, 20 years, let alone. So I mean, it has to be said what is going on there. Okay. So I will say, award shows in the era of streaming and everyone is kind of siloed off into their different ways of getting music. There's algorithms, there's social, there's ads put in front of you. Like how you discover music has been completely upended. So I get it. I understand why I don't know a lot of this music. Just because how would I have come across this music? I'm not around people that listen to this kind of music, which is, country. You're my entire window into country music. And so I don't get a lot of that. I get a lot of hip hop from my kids and just the world, the kind of pop culture I consume. I get some punk rock, I get some reggae, singer songwriter, that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's wild, but that's okay. I think that's cool. Who cares if I don't know who these people are? Let's take a look and see what's going on. So, record of the year. Some ask, what is that? Because you have the two top awards. If you're scrolling the link here, that's in I use NPR's because it's one of the cleanest lists. Record of the year and album of the year. What's the difference? Right?
Exactly. Right? Are they talking vinyls here versus
the record? But when you look at the record, it's actually a song. Right. And then album of the year, it's a whole album. The way I've had, and then you have song of the year below that. Right. So they're the three kind of go together as I've had explained to me from an actual Grammy voter. So there's people in associations who are musicians, producers, and stuff. And they told me how this works of the three. So record of the year is about the most, not exactly, but it's heavily weighted by the commercial success of the song. Right.
Yep.
And so I can totally agree with this. I know in my world that has to be Not Like Us takes that one. And when I look at the list of nominees, it's the only song I could identify if it came on.
Sure.
Like, I'm not saying I haven't heard those other songs, but I wouldn't know it. Right. So I think in my world, that seems fair. That's the most commercially successful song of the year, probably.
Yeah.
It plays at every basketball game I go to, and I go to many a week. So, there you go.
Yeah.
Album of the year, I had it explained to me more about the technical side of the album. It's weighted by that. It's not
Okay.
obviously people's own opinions and commercial successes are a part of that, but they're trying
How
to
it's produced. And
right. Yeah.
how-
So it's about that, the work as a compilation, not necessarily about how popular it is.
Yeah.
And again, I've probably heard, and Cowboy Carter takes that. I've probably heard a song off that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But you're in the country world.
Yeah.
What's the backlash?
Oh man.
I'll say it straight up. A black woman from not country roots, as far as we know, makes a country album and wins album of the year.
Right.
What's the murmurs out there in country world?
So I have two sides to that. The first side is to answer your question of, it's not really country. It's more pop that, they're just because she has a name and so much success that, they're giving it to her. There's no banjo, there's no folk style to it. There's no, it's all produced, through loops and, it just how it lacks a big part of the story that country music represents of our lives,
right,
and representing the South. And so that's the first part. The interesting thing about that situation, the second part is, I think one of the things I was digging into this a little bit, and, you're asking about what I think with these award shows. And I think, it's part of the disconnect for me is how these artists don't really represent the artists that I really listen to.
Right.
However, one of the things that these award shows represent is this attempt to represent art, aside from politics, aside from whatever commercial agendas that are involved. That within art, the ones that are authentic and the ones that help it progress. And if you could package it up with authenticity and progression of art and sales, then that's like a formula for a win or for success.
Right.
And so with this, there's a progression. There's a progression within country music where, we've seen more collaborative efforts with mainstream pop artists coming in alongside, known and tried and true country artists. But where the interesting part about it is that it reaches a larger demographic around, you can play these songs in arenas or dance halls, or, when you go, my kids go to this place. It's a country dance spot. They have like a teen night, but I've even gone with some other double dates and stuff to this dance hall. And the DJ in there will play a song like Beyonce's Cowboy Carter because it gets people moving. If you turn on some of the older stuff, then you get the old school country dancers in there doing their kind of two-step and line dancing to the more classic country stuff.
Right.
So, just to add on, and I think you might get into it, I do remember when we were getting our show started that you were talking about how female rap artists are having a moment. And I think that there's a lot represented within who won these awards as it relates to female artists. And this is like arguably one of the top awards that was won by a female artist.
Does this prove our hypothesis?
I think it completely
is. She, I would never call her a rapper, but she's rap adjacent. She's married to a legendary rapper, and I don't want to take away from her credentials, but her being successful, her body, a whole new genre is like the women, black women are going to have a good year, and Beyonce's saying, we're taking over new genres now.
Right.
That's great.
Yeah, it is. So that's part of it. I think it's all right. I think true country artists might be a little upset, or country music listeners might be a little upset, but I would assume too that there's enough security to know, like, okay, we know what true, like CMT awards are a better representation of who's up and coming with.
That's fair. Yeah. Yeah. I get that. So, and Willie Nelson's on a track or two on the album. So she's got the cosign from the Redheaded Stranger. So that's big. Song of the year of of those three, that's a little bit kind of how those are confusing. Song of the year from my voting member who kind of broke it down for me. He said this is kind of similar to album of the year, and it's about the work, the quality of the work. So again, record of the year is the commercially successful song. Really, is how commercially successful it is one of the biggest weights. but they'll kind of throw out those one-hit wonders, annoying earworms. Like I'm sure Macarena was the most popular song of the year it came out, but it wasn't going to be nominated. I mean, it's not a good song. So song of the year is it's trying to weight a little bit towards the quality. So you definitely get some more, it's about the songwriter. So I don't know if the lyrics matter or the cultural impact or what it's trying to say. Again, not like us, Kendrick Lamar takes that hardware home. But you have some of the usuals in here. So Beyonce with Texas Hold'em. What a roster. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people on the credits for Texas Hold'em. So Beyonce uses a team of writers. It's fine. Kendrick Lamar only credited on his. Let's see, Jack Desert, Billie Irish, Billie Eilish. She's on there. I enjoy her lyricism, if you will. Some of her not a big fan of her sonics, but I think that's her brother, Phineas. No relation to Phineas and Ferb.
Okay.
Not like us. So that's song of the year. So cool. Best new artist. Who was that?
You called it, man. You dove into that too. You called it.
Chappell Roan. Yeah. So, back last year, I listened to the album. Have you heard the term? We don't know this for sure. Have you heard the term industry plant?
Yes. You shared that on some episodes back.
For the listener, what's the kind of layman's term? What's the layman's definition of that? What's that look like?
I want to say like a formula where marketing and branding kind of sets all the pieces together, and you bring somebody to come in and just do what they tell you to do because it's going to work.
Right.
Like they've already got all the connections, all the ties, all the money, within the industry. And it's like, let's bring in this person that's enough to be, to sing it or to perform it, but we're just going to have them do it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's not something I will wholesale say is bad, like industry plant. Like how I get art and how it's created, it can be created all sorts of different ways. But at a glance, Chappell Roan has industry plant vibes, because generally an industry plant is they'll take it's usually someone who fits a bill. Like they see a need out in the market for a certain sound, a certain look, a certain voice, all this stuff. And then they raise up an artist, a team of producers and art directors and writers and all sorts. They create a whole ecosystem around this person. And generally with an industry plant, the first time anybody sees them is when they release the album, because they haven't done what you used to do traditionally, was get together with some people, form a band, write some songs, record something, and then go do shows first locally, whatever show you can get. You see, in my world coming up from punk rock and stuff like that, your first shows were almost always just somebody's house party, and then you get, you step up and you play the local bars and that sort of stuff, and you get better. You see what works, and it just grows you. And then eventually a producer or A&R guy hears your stuff, goes to your show, signs you to a record deal. You record something, and then you hit the road. With the industry plant, you never do all that. It's you try out. Like, I don't know how, because when I look at Chappell Roan, not to take away from, obviously she's the best new artist. It's a fun album. It's doing well. She comes out of nowhere. You don't see a track record of, okay, what group was she in with some friends in high school or college, and what local scene was she in that she raised up. It's like all of a sudden, boom, you're playing a showcase at like a grand concourse thing where, like, sometimes, a thing where a bunch of rich people are going to be together. A lot of times that'll be used for business dealings. So South by Southwest was that. It's okay. Bands that don't exist yet, haven't toured, will go to Austin in March, and they'll play showcases, is what they're called. And record people will be in there. So the manager or whoever is trying to get this person a bigger deal or get them distribution will put on the show. They'll play their songs, and they're playing for a record deal. They're playing for distribution. They're playing for something versus just going out there and earning their own fans. So the industry is getting better at hiding that it's an industry plant. So it's hard to know. And I don't want to take away from it, but best new artist, industry plant, like, Krogbin was nominated. Love it. Doechii, I believe Doechii.
Right.
I believe she
Yeah.
hustled.
Yeah.
And got there. Like, she seems like an artist. Chappelle Roan feels like a curated performer, and she only has the one album. They floated singles out there, and yeah, I'm not. I don't know. I don't know how I feel. Like, I don't know if that's a good future for music, because you're not going to get the best music when when it's basically propaganda. You're trying to fit it into a mold.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. That's a good take.
So I don't know. Industry plant, like I said, we got good music. People like it. That's fine. What's it mean for the future of music?
Yeah,
Where
it
are we
feels like
go?
the best new artist is represents like who's the most commercial artist that we could get the most out of for the next little run here. And it seems like they go through these like every couple of years, going all the way back to probably like Madonna, where it's like a little bit of shock factor. Let's push this artist to basically how far can we go with them? And then it seems like it doesn't really end very well for these plants, like the success of it, you push yourself so far that you just crash and burn.
Well, Beyonce's done it. Like, the
True.
Destiny's Child was a curated industry plant thing, and she was able to make a career out of it. I mean, it does happen. But what it worries me, I'm going to show a chart for all the data nerds. I'm going to try to make this so it shows big enough here. Let's see if I do that. This one I came across some time ago. It is percentage of Billboard. People that can't see, I'm showing in line graph that goes from 1961 to 2021. It's a percentage of Billboard Hot 100 number one hits with a key change. What's your first take?
That it's become much less popular. Don't do it anymore.
Right?
It's like flatlined and died.
Right?
Like, maybe for the listener, it's not as aesthetically pleasing.
So I joke, there's a dip, like it falls off in 1997.
Yep. Flatlines. And
what album came out in 1997? What's the best album? One of the best albums ever made came out in 97. Top of your head, I bet you can get it.
Give me a genre.
Rock, alternative, British guys.
Oh, Oasis.
OK Computer came out in 1997.
Oh, my bad. Okay.
Which maybe is it. So if you can't see the chart, so there's a collapse in key changes, and this is just number one hits. Which what that means when I see that, I see music is getting pretty monolithic. It's not sonically diverse. It's not sonically challenging, because what happens is, and this is kind of parallels. I wonder if I could overlay this at some point. I'm not going to do it now, with the decline of radio, where in its last dying breaths, radio really had to narrow the playlist down, because it was about, the goal of radio is not to give you interesting music, not to play good music. The goal is to make you not change the channel or the station so that you can hear an ad. Right. And so you have to cater to the middle of the bell curve. And what's happened is, the popular music has gotten very uninteresting, no surprises, very simple, almost always upbeat and just kind of four on the floor, without key changes. Caveat, I don't know if this takes into account rap, which a key change is kind of irrelevant in rap. But yeah, the key change, the dynamics of music has fallen off a cliff since 1997. So I don't know if that has to do with it, but it's just another thing that I think is interesting.
Yeah.
And again, I don't want to be get off my lawn old guy. I look at this stuff because I want to avoid that. Okay. So it is getting harder for me to find music. It is in more of a niche. Interesting.
Right. I put in the Google just top industry plants recent years. And it just came up saying, while the term industry plant is often used to describe artists perceived as heavily promoted by labels with a manufactured image, some musicians frequently cited fitting this description. Justin Bieber, Miley Cyrus, Britney Spears, many manufactured K-pop groups, Lorde, the Jonas Brothers, and more recently, Olivia Rodrigo and Kid Laroi.
Okay.
So, you can kind of see the similarities.
Yeah. Usually one of the old telltales is when you go and look at the song credits and who wrote them. But the artists and their managers have gotten smarter. And even if it is a team that writes it or they've bought the song, they're putting the performer's name on there as well, giving them writing credits as well. So anyway, I'm not mad. It's just kind of where things are going. So if you're like one of those guys, and that's always my audience, the guy who gave up on listening to new music, I get it. I get it. It's just harder to find it, but you got, and that's kind of why we're here to do that work. All that to say, Chappell Roan, great album. In 10 years, it's not going to be, there's always going to be those songs that were important because they hit you at a certain point in life. And so for the kids, where Chappell Roan had some songs that really hit right now, in a time like those songs are always going to be with them. Right. But in general, it's not going to be, it's not going to stand the test of time. That kind of music is my guess, my old man guess. But yeah, pretty cool. Look through there. There was another one to get into the rock stuff. And that's where I want to talk about genre, but I'll just run through those real quick. So best rock performance now and then by the Beatles. I haven't even gone to click through any of this because I think it's just stupid. Like, can we stop with this?
Yeah.
The Beatles best metal performance. So we have looks probably that's a Portuguese band. They throw down hard. Mea culpa.
Yeah.
I haven't listened to much metal, so
on the rock performance though, I was interested to see this band pop up, and it is a band that I've actually it found me in the algorithm on Instagram, and it really got my attention. And for a second, I believed it, but I got fooled. The caption said, "I really like the direction Dave Matthews is going," and it was a video of the band Idols, and. And I was like, wait, Dave Matthews is really going pretty hard right now. And then I was like, this is actually kind of catchy. I kind of like it. It's got a little bit of a punk vibe to it.
Yeah.
And they did a basement recording. They did a tiny desk recording. And I just found myself diving into them. And then when I saw them pop up, I'm like, cool. Like, wow, that's current. I like it. Their name's on there. And, I hadn't really ever heard of them, and it got my attention. And I will say some of their songs do all they kind of sound the same. It has a similar syncopation to it, or like rhythm to it. And the way he sings, it's almost the same song every time. But he goes pretty hard. I like his style, and I don't know how much you've gotten in or have heard of them or listened to their stuff, but it was pretty good.
If I'm understanding the timeline, debut album 2017 called Brutalism. And then this year, that's a single album. So Gift Horse is the single that was nominated. I'll have to listen to it. I didn't get a chance to get into that deep.
The video is pretty cool. I looked up that video to see like, okay, what is Gift Horse at? And it wasn't one of the ones that I caught them performing in the basement, but the video is remarkable in a way where you just got to watch it. But the imagery in it is kind of current, kind of heavy, kind of like, okay, like that, dude.
Only 11 million spins on Spotify. So that, for something to be nominated against the likes of a Green Day, the Beatles, come on guys, Pearl Jam on there. And then St. Vincent, which I've been kind of lightly aware of over the years.
Yeah.
And this kind of brings up the question of, and they won, she won. St. Vincent is a person. Right. Her name is Annie Clark. Right. Who she has a history in the industry, in the scene, has been, a member of groups that really were doing interesting things. I think the Polyphonic Spree was doing something kind of fun and interesting. Remember that kind of, it was like, it had this like 70s hippie choir thing going on, like Age of Aquarius kind of thing, but they were doing pop music and plus their own stuff. So she was in that. I think that's where she got her start. But Broken Man, so that I asked a question about genres, but I want to start with rock. Like the question here is, is guitar required for rock music?
I feel like yes.
Why do you say that?
Well, man, it's like because rock is. I feel like the guitar is the foundation of it. Like just plugging it in, turning it up, face melting. You lead with the guitar, and then you add in just that edge of sticking it to the man, and like I feel like it drives rock. But
would you then a question? Would you consider the Future Islands rock music?
Oh man, I feel like it's hard to kind of put their sound into a box because there's aspects of it that feel 80s, I guess with synth pop kind of would be a little bit more synth rock.
Wikipedia classifies their genres as synth pop, alternative rock, indie pop. So 1 out of 3, there's a rock variant in there. So that's kind of where I'm at, because I say that because St. Vincent, most of her music doesn't really have guitar, and when it does, it's kind of like old Michael Jackson or Peter Gabriel, where it's just there's some accents in there, there's a riff or two, maybe there's a chord being played in the background. It's not front and center. So I think a lot of people, especially people our age, Gen Xers, boomers especially, would the rock music is guitar. I don't know. Like how would we get that same type of music? When we think of rock music, I don't know what defines it. Who's to say? Who cares? But is it beyond the guitar? That's kind of one of our hypotheses this year. We're going to get we hope to get a guitar song, because it's been a while. It's been a while since the guitar riff, was dominant. So Broken Man, St. Vincent. If you hadn't told me they were rock or she was rock and I heard their music, it just sounds like most pop music. I will say it's more dynamic and interesting than like a Chappelle Roan. A Chappelle Roan is 4 on the floor, dance, let's party, get the girls, let's go, every song. It's with St. Vincent, she's it has alternative melodies, like it sounds like rock melodies. I'll give her that. A lot of dancey kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah. It feels led by synth and loops.
It's pop music, but yeah, so kind of a weird one. And I wouldn't say industry plant, but, someone who had a different path, to music. It didn't come from guitar first music. And so
she's had a presence within the Austin city limits, both recordings and, festival. Like she's been, they've brought her front and center. So sometimes I feel like within the awards, there are these awards that are given based on a body of work versus,
which is why the Rolling Stones and the Beatles are winning right now, which is so stupid. But yeah, no, I think she's found that line between playing pop music because she likes it, but also stuff that's a little more palate forward. So people with credentials, music kind of purists or people that are snotty can say they like it too. So it's not, and I feel the same way about Kendrick Lamar. He's found a way to please people like me who are I consider myself more of a rap purist. I like lyricism. I like the story. I love the art form of it. And I like really good rap from that perspective. I don't care for the poppy rap. And he's found a way to kind of blend the two to maintain street cred, if you will, but also put out music that's catchy and palatable to a broader audience. And I think that's what St. Vincent does. That's what she does. So interesting. But yeah, in genres in general, do they matter anymore, John?
Well, I think it helps categorize music for listeners. But I think in the bigger discussion, it's all art. So to put art in a box is I mean, I have an issue with that in general, like just a foundational issue of trying to put a label or to put, because art is defined by the viewer, but it's the expression of the artist. And so maybe, so I think, yes, that they are needed when you open up a Spotify and you click on, okay, I'm in the mood to listen to, and you click on the genre and it gets you to the artist within that. Or it's like going to the old Blockbuster where you would say, I want to see a good horror movie. So you go over to the horror section and it's all of them that are listed in there.
Right.
However, on the flip side of that, it does feel like we're at a time now where those things aren't like there are no record stores. So, you don't need to go over to the R&B section, So
Right.
that's an interesting question. Because I grew up with it. I grew up with the genres of music, so it's hard to think outside that box.
Yeah,
but
and the radio station was genre specific. I listened to the alternative station, and there was a rock station. They were different. Like rock station, you get Metallica.
Right.
You might get some Pearl Jam, and on the alternative station, you're getting Pearl Jam, but you're also getting Morrissey and some of that stuff. So it was different. The country station was country. And the pop station was pop, and the hip hop station was, and sometimes the R&B was separate from hip hop. So it was genre was important back then. It's going away.
Well, and maybe
any dangers?
Yeah, the dangers that I see is one of the greatest values of art and music in this discussion is the progress of it. And so it has to evolve. And so if you put these things in those boxes, then it can potentially limit the evolution or the progress of that expression. And that you might miss the very things that might create the biggest movements or help push music forward. And you look back at these artists along the way that have done that have been on the front line. And that's why I think we both love Radiohead so much, is I think they really contributed to the progress of music and the expression. Pushing boundaries. And that's probably why you like Pink Floyd so much.
Yeah.
And the ways that what would music be like without Pink Floyd? Or without Radiohead and the influences that they've carried to help inspire other artists to express without the boundaries, without the confinements of genres. So to me, that's one of the greatest dangers of the genres, is that it keeps things limited, it keeps things in a box, it slows down progress, and it doesn't evolve. And then it gets just stale and boring for the listener.
Maybe we're in a period of chaos, and I think we see this in a lot of spaces in culture, but specifically with music. Death of radio, the ease of access to a platform. So in socio-political spaces, everyone has access to a platform, and I can publish, this podcast. I can publish a tweet for the world to see. We all have access, and it's nearly free. And so music's going through a similar thing where, like we've said before, you and I both have the equipment in our homes right now to create a full-on album of music, any kind.
Right.
And so with that, there's a lot of noise. Mm-hmm. And so genres, in the past have helped you sift through the noise. Yeah. But they've also kind of made some of those hard to genre-tize. Is that a word?
Yeah.
Bands. It made them hard to kind of break through. We don't know what radio station to put you on, that kind of thing. But in light of that chart I showed, the lack of the decline in key change, or better say the decline in variability sonically between one song to another is narrowing, because from a industry plant, propaganda, commercial success sort of way, there are many more groups, people, with interest targeting the same people. So much like radio, as the field of view narrows, the bell curve narrows and focuses, the art has to as well. Maybe that's why at the tippy end, the most popular end of music, it's becoming more homogenous sonically and less interesting. I think that's the risk of genres starting to go away, is now it's one genre and it's popular, and to break through can be tricky, because in the past I could say, well, we're a shoegaze band, and I listen to shoegaze. Let's say I listen to Swerve Driver, and I put that on. I can go look at, you like Swerve Driver, then, you're going to like,
Yeah.
You're going to like Starflyer 59,
Yeah.
and so, or the algorithm could feed that to you.
Right.
But if it's like, how does that interesting, how does a Black MIDI break through and get success when there's the pipe is just clogged with everybody making the same music to
I
reach the
wonder
same
if that's
person?
what, as you're talking, that made me just think maybe that we experienced that, didn't realize that with rock music. Maybe it got to a place where we had heard so much that as it evolved, it reached kind of that peak where then it did get flooded, where you had these, more traditional 70s sounding classic rock style. Then the 80s had its movement with the hair bands, and then the 90s with the grunge. And then, there were a few bands that carried the torch through the flooding of the rock music, like the Foo Fighters, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Black Keys type, like keeping it somewhat relevant where people could hang on to something that, it makes me. And then when you see a winner like, St. Vincent, maybe that's part of the disconnect, that it's progressing, and maybe we recognize the rock secondary to maybe what the expression of it is. Maybe she is a rock, artist in the way that she performs and expresses it in a way.
Yeah, when you look
In
at
defiance.
when you look her up online, every time she's on stage, she has a guitar.
Right.
And then this morning I went and I just put on St. Vincent in Spotify and just kind of played the top tracks. And there was nary a guitar to be heard. I'm not complaining, but there feels like a disconnect because you're saying you're rock. Maybe when you play live, there's more. I know a lot of music will change when you play live, and in the studio, you're dependent on machines and tech to make the music. But I'm not mad, but it was like, it seems like a disconnect. It sounds like pop. If you told me this was pop music, had I never heard Chappelle Roan, but I knew about her aura and her energy, I would have thought it was Chappelle Roan. It sounds the same to me.
I think there's probably country artists on their podcast talking the same conversation about Beyonce winning.
Yeah. And I think that's fine. So how do we go forward? I don't know. So that's why we're here, to try and figure out how to discover new music. I'm not mad, but I'd love to see, how do we move on? What's the next MTV Music Awards? When do we kind of kill this legacy thing? Because the Beatles, Rolling, like all the other stuff I'm not mad about, but the Beatles, the Rolling Stones,
that's old, man.
Like
that's
we gotta stop. Best rock album. Here's who's nominated: the Black Crowes, Pearl Jam, Rolling Stones, Green Day, Jack White, and then of course Idols, which you said, and Fontaine's DC. So you have two kind of up and comers that, in the world of everyone's siloed in their own places. Pretty much very few people have ever heard of those bands, because you're talking 11 million spins on their top track against these legacy bands where everyone's over 60 and sometimes over 70. Black Crowes, Green Day, Pearl Jam, Rolling Stones, Jack White. Like that's weird. So what's next?
It would be cool. Well, it'd be cool to be able to see those bands replaced with current bands that are, making it, and on the front lines, like at least within the past like 3 years, just see bands up there, because it just feels such borrowed success from decades ago.
Here's my advice to whoever picks the Grammys. If you've given someone a Lifetime Achievement Award, they are now you've retired the jersey.
Yep.
They don't get awards anymore. That's it.
Yep. That's great. That's great, man.
The Rolling Stones won a Lifetime Achievement Award almost 40 years ago. And
not to go too far back into the NBA, but that same discussion is happening. Like, because they gave not Larry Allen, Allen from Memphis. What's his first name? The defender. And anyways, they gave Memphis Grizzlies guy a jersey, and then they gave Iguodala the jersey, and they're like, okay,
we're going to run out of numbers.
Give everybody. Yeah, we're going to run out of numbers, and now we have to go back and give it to everybody, because like we're reaching here. with this.
Yeah.
Why are we doing this? Why are we retiring these? Like, let's give it to the legends of the legends of the legends. But Iguodala, like, I mean, yeah, he's good, but is he top 100 all time?
I mean, and well, the blue collar, the guy who's a fan of the blue collar guy who clocks in and makes the donuts, you love Iguodala because that's what he did his whole career, you know. But
yeah, but he also he held LeBron instead of to 40 in the finals, he held him to 30, 35. Like,
yeah,
I mean,
Finals MVP that year.
Yeah.
But you know, I get it. One of my wife's favorite players, Iguodala. But you know, because she loves the guy that she loves the guy that clocks in there and just does the ugly work. That's always been
awesome.
So
he's great with the 76ers too, though.
But yeah, that's that Grammys. Let's figure out how to twilight some of the legacy stuff. Like, I get it. I mean, I'm going to be old one day, and I hope that my voice still matters. But I hope more importantly, I hand the keys over to all this stuff. If I have the keys to something, I need to hand it off. And let the youth take over. So yeah, interesting. Grammys, I'll work through that and start to add some of those. But yeah, I feel detached, but I think that's fine. I think everybody does. I don't think it's an age thing. You know, because we all are kind of in our own world of streaming. We're in a period of chaos for music. All right.
Do the kids care about the Grammys?
I don't think they even know it's on anymore. It doesn't matter anymore. There might be a few kids who might care about their genre specific awards, like the BET does awards focused on rap and hip hop and black music. Yeah. There might be some paying attention CMT, there. CMT country music, they might have something there. CMAs. There you go. Yeah. CMA. So it doesn't matter. You know, do we need awards for art? I don't know. I think the world's too big for it now. The field of view that whoever is in charge of picking Grammys is just too. It's not possible to give awards anymore with how much content is out there. I would imagine more music is produced in a month nowadays than was produced from the entire history, man, up until probably the 70s or 80s. It's gotten that easy. So a lot of noise, and now there's AI making music, but that's a different topic. So Grammys. Okay, book club. John picked a novel. I asked John a few weeks ago, pick a classic novel that everybody's read or everybody thinks they've read and talks about. And you picked a very interesting one, which was
Greg, Orwell's 1984.
Yeah, 1984. Now, talk about why, just to kind of recap why you've picked the book. And I'm reading along with John. So this will be our first check-in on book club. What was your kind of...
I felt like it just kept coming up. Like when I heard about the landscape that we're in right now, politically, advancements in technology, that there were these comparisons and like, we're living out 1984. Like this is like what we read about. And so I felt disconnected to that conversation because I'd never read it. And so I was interested to see, okay, what is this connection? What does this book have to say that people keep using as like the standard of like what we need to avoid and what we're starting to see and what we're going through?
Yeah. And as someone who's read it, it's been a long time, probably been 20 plus years, definitely more than 20 years since I've read it. Most people using concepts to be for or against something in the socio-political environment of the last 20 years are completely misunderstanding, at least from what I've seen, completely misunderstanding what the message was within it. And so it'll be cool to kind of refresh that, because the last 10 years I constantly am like, I probably have burned it into my screen searching Wikipedia for what is fascism, because people keep trying to gaslight people on what it means. When you go look at it, it's pretty clear what fascism is, and so it's people use that out of context. Basically, there's people that call things like fascism, communism, totalitarianism, socialism. They use these isms just to label anything they don't like. You know, kind of like your mom called everything that was a video game a Nintendo, you know, even though, well, they bought this PlayStation. You know,
I was playing Sega.
Yeah, Nintendo. So, or kind of like like we call everything Kleenex, it's a brand name when it's actually it's tissue or facial tissue. So we get it wrong. So when people, are, yelling fascism or communism or something like that on 1984 the concepts from it come up. Right. So let's set the scene. Who's it? What's the scene? What's the current? And that's really kind of how the book starts. It's building the world that we need to live in to understand the what's going on. What? Give me the summary.
Oh man. So there's the party, which is like the control, the political that controls everything, and this party is responsible for the demise of pretty much all things mankind. That makes it beautiful. A controlled removal of or defining like what truth is, and like you can't talk about the things, you can't read about the things. So much of this book, at least as far I'm into chapter 9, is still talking about all the things, like all the rules and all the dangers of like what you can't do anymore. Like, maybe you can do a better job laying it down.
So it's a dystopian novel, a cautionary tale, if you will. And our main character, Winston Smith, is who we're experiencing the first part of the book through. And so his experiences are painting the picture of what reality is. Yeah. And so essentially there's 3 mega countries in the world. And the country our character lives in and we starred in is called Oceania, something like that. Yeah. Oceania, maybe. Yeah. It's Oceania. Yeah. And then there's in the early parts, we're only hearing about the one of the other Eurasia. So we can assume that's Europe and Eastern Europe, China, kind of that main continent. So I believe there's a third, if I recall correctly.
I hope so.
But everything is tightly controlled. So what we're experiencing is you learn about what he's doing to kind of be devious is he's writing with a pen on paper, and he doesn't know why. He's not really writing in particular to start. He's just like, I have to write. Like I have to get this out, right? But I have to hide that I'm doing it, right? So we know that you're not allowed to create things. It would seem. So they're letting you know that. You learn a little bit about
his job,
what they call Big Brother, which is a term you hear used on both kind of sides of our current political conversation. It's this overbearing kind of invisible hand that will bust you if you break some of the rules of the
disintegrate
party.
I think is part of the
so everything is a death penalty or something like that. And so that's kind of the context. He's in this totalitarian dystopian reality of a mega country, and everything in your life seems to be controlled. And so everyone has like a TV. It seems like every room, like there's a TV, and in the early scenes, we get the feeling that that the TV can see you. And this is 1949, so they had no clue what a webcam was. So the televisions can see you, but they also broadcast the propaganda. And it seems like there's scheduled things that happen where you're required to be in front of the TV thing. It has a name. I forget what it's called. Anyway, you're required to be there, and they show you the scary leader of sometimes like a rebellion movement, kind of like this, or they show you the scary leader of one of the other mega countries. And then they tell you, how we have to, this is,
must be defeated.
Right. And you learn about the 4 ministries. So the ministry of peace, the ministry of plenty, the ministry of truth, the ministry of love. Ministry of love is, I think I recall in those early chapters, it's definitely not about love. It's about hurting people. Sort of
everything's the opposite of what those words are.
So peace is the war, and they're saying that it's everywhere. It's what is it? War is peace. What's the?
There's statements that go with each.
There's kind of their propaganda statement, and that's the funny one. Publication, war is peace. I don't have my notes here. I don't have the book in front of me, but war is peace. Like learning or truth is a lie. that sort of thing. I have to look it up because it's actually pretty important.
Yeah.
Let me get here. But so that's where it starts. And Orwell was a devout, what we call a democratic socialist. So he was like a Bernie Sanders, who would consider himself war's peace. There it is. War's peace. Freedom is slavery. Ignorance is strength. And it's like, now you look today and you're like, as it feels like in a lot of countries in the world where there's a dramatic rightward shift. And I'll say this, you shift too far left, I guess left for people looking at me is that way, shift too far left, it's a problem. You shift too far right, it's a problem. I always consider myself kind of a centrist, a left-leaning, democratic socialist, maybe in business, almost a Marxist. Just to be clear, I believe people should share profits equally. If I work for a company and they pay me $100,000, they shouldn't be allowed to make $10 million off of my effort. We should share some of that. I should be paid more if you're making, that's anyway. But you get too far left and you get anarchy, and anarchy is chaos. And whoever, if you in a pure anarchy, the strongest person willing to commit the most violence rise to the top. And so you have a totalitarian leader. If you go all the way right, where you have to lock everybody down, which is what the dystopia that they're painting here in 1984 is a right, extreme right fascist totalitarian. And the way to maintain power is the same thing. Who's the most willing and capable of committing violence is how you hold power. And so I think a lot of people they get confused about, well, what's right, what's left. At its extremes, it doesn't matter. It takes someone who's violent, willing and capable to commit violence at the extremes is where they come together. So I'm interested to kind of get refreshed on some of this stuff and some of the nuggets there. But yeah, painting the picture. What else stands out?
Oh man, I'm kind of struggling a little bit, and because I'm just getting a little bored of the conversation or the talk, like all the rules of
lots of world building, a lot of time put into building the world.
A lot of world building. Yeah. And so like I'm waiting for the plot to surface better. And I mean I'm there's characters that are coming up, like the brown-haired lady. They talked about a guy named O'Brien, the shop guy, where he got the book from. It seems like that might be getting a little interesting. So I'm kind of waiting for this to finally kind of blossom a little bit around our guy. Like I feel like he's on the edge of discovering something, or the twist, or like this thing opening up, or he goes on the run, or he's going to get caught. He's just not there yet, but he's talking about all the fears and all the control and all the rules and all the consequences and just the landscape and the world building. So, I mean, that's kind of my feedback on where thus far. Like, man, I hope this thing kind of picks up a little bit around the characters and around
the plot. In the first parts of the book, it's tough to nail down because the sooner you can understand what the main character wants, now you have a quest, or you have a journey, or you have an arc that you need to go down. Because I know what you want, and I am experiencing this through you, so I want it too. So it takes a while. Like, it's a classic novel. There's lots of world building going on. But the first theme in there that's interesting, that was a little, they call their language newspeak.
Yeah.
Which isn't a language. It's, as far as we know, it's just English. But essentially, it's Orwell's way of saying that they are changing the definitions of words. So this is almost
like the removal of the history of the words. Right.
Exactly. So they're saying, we're not going to talk about things past, and our main character even goes through back in, because it's 1984, and he goes back in his time in his mind, like, we can't remember things.
He doesn't even know if it is 1984.
Right. Yeah. So they're the newspeak is trying to eliminate or change the definitions of words. And the first one that kind of caught my eye again, or kind of thinking through, that I think has relevance today, is the word doublethink. Do you remember that from the reading?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's almost like a word that captures captures gaslighting in one word. Like, I don't know if the term gaslighting is in this, but you're talking an entire population that's been gaslit because of Newspeak and this concept of doublethink, which is, it can mean it depending on the audience for the word, it can mean two different things. So, if like you're not allowed to say something is black when it's in fact white, right? You're not allowed to say that. But as a party member, it is a
duty.
It is a whistle, dog whistle is an important part of our duty to say we are in the party, to say something that is black is actually white. So when you're doing it, so it's the motivation behind it. When it motivates the cause, it is a sign of your loyalty to say something false, or to say something that's white is actually black. And so I'm interested to see where that goes, because you see that now. I have, I think, like I said before, how many times in the last 10 years I've had to quickly Google the definition of fascism because someone said, "Oh, it's not fascism," and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, it is." And so you get that, and so I think that goes down the road of what people kind of twist when they talk about these themes nowadays. When well, that's Big Brother, and it comes down to this, and I think this is what's interesting. When I think of how people misinterpret this or misinterpret like an Ayn Rand or something like that, it's freedom, the definition of freedom, right? How would you define freedom?
Oh, man. Like without control or limits, to be able to, without boundaries, I guess without consequence, within like within love or within truth. I don't know if that really defines it. But
there's two ways to look at freedom. There's kind of what you are saying right now, which is the freedom to do what I want, or the freedom to be autonomous and not have an exogenous influence on my life, right? Where, one of the main saying in the book, which is war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength, freedom is slavery. So, almost to say, if you were totally free, you'd be off on your own in the world. You wouldn't have any control. And I think this is where a lot of people get confused between, well, this is a communist. This is a book about communism and that, which is a whole different thing. Or the other definition of freedom is the freedom to do things, right? And I think it really comes down, and that's kind of where we're stuck. I think in America and a lot of Western worlds right now, it's really, I don't think it's about right and left. I don't think it's always about religious people versus secular people, or however you want to cut it up, capitalist versus, different economic models. It's kind of about people who live in cities and people who live in the country. It's like rural versus city, because those two places define freedom very differently because it's in the context of things, right?
Yeah.
So I've heard this said, and it's, as I try to learn from people who come from that world, out in rural areas, you kind of are on your own. You have to take care of each other yourself. You have bigger property, you're kind of on your own. You're not having to consider your impact on others in your day-to-day life very often. There's not much traffic, you're not interacting, rubbing elbows with people all the time. Where you live in the city, we have to function as a society. I have to contain some things that people in the rural area might consider a freedom. Like, I can't, drive a broke down car and do donuts all over downtown New York. We don't have the space. That's going to have impact that people that have to listen to that nonsense. Right. But yeah, you're on your property on the rural, knock yourself out, drive your old, take all the mufflers off there, go wrap it up, buddy. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. And so I think that's where the shift is, the difference in how we understand freedom. And so I'm interested to kind of see how this goes, that freedom is slavery context. And I think that's kind of the shift right now. So for me, I look at freedom as the ability to be part of the network and to have the opportunity to be able to do the things I want to do and not have all these negative impacts. And so that's kind of where I come from. But yeah, so I'm interested to see how this plays out versus the other one, which is I can do what I want. Well, that I think feels like that's a vacuum because what you want impacts other people. You've heard people say, well, we live in a society.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can't do whatever you want if we're going to live together. Out in the rural, out in the plains, knock yourself out, man. Do what you want to do. But there's certain decorum in there. So, but again, I think go to either extreme it becomes problematic. So, freedom. I hate when people say, well, I believe in freedom. You believe in your definition of freedom, right? So,
right.
We'll see. I think the younger generations are different. I think they think freedom is in the collective, my ability to be part of the network, and things are more horizontal. And that's really in stark contrast to what got us to where we are in America, where freedom is top down, hierarchical. We have an authority at the top,
decentralized,
right? And so it's about freedom is about how many laws stop me from doing the things I want to do. Well, the more laws you have, the less free I am.
But it seems like within that lateral, that the laws become the reason to keep things lateral, if that makes sense. Like you lean on, hey, you can't do that. You can't talk to me that way. You can't treat me that way.
Right.
You can't force me. Like, and I mean, I'll just go to HR, or I'll whistle blow, or that's not how you treat people. So like, within that lateral kind of decentralized, some of those rules become the framework that allows you to navigate the space without being micromanaged or controlled, or
right.
Because I mean, it seems like what I see is some of the frustration of the old school top down being like, they don't want to work. I don't want to, they want to follow the lead. They're not follower ready, and like I get, like they're not good leaders because they don't want to do what I say.
Yeah.
So then the, that thinking of the younger generation's like, well, no, I have self-respect, and within my, with it, like you said, within that group mentality, that's not how we behave. That's not how we act. We're not going to do that.
Yeah. No, I'm interested to see how, kind of as I dig back into this after 20 plus years, where that goes. But I think, double think and just kind of that gaslighting thing where, we'll have to get a little bit political as we go through this. And I think that's fine. But to talk about why we think what we think, I think is more important, because quite frankly, I don't get the opportunity to talk to people that are from the kind of the far right. I just don't have them in my life. Mm-hmm. Or, other than kind of, I have some family that's like that. And I've learned to kind of dig in and really try to just be more compassionate and open about political discourse, and I think a lot of times we get stuck on what we don't want. Like if your political point of view is really based in what you don't want, or another layer of that, what you're scared of. And so your political stance is really a reaction to something. That's not healthy. But I think we can talk about, well, what do you want? I bet we want similar things. And really to understand freedom, because we both want freedom. And that's where the conversation I think needs to lean in is we want different kinds of freedom. And to your point, freedom is contextualized. There's certain freedoms you get to have in your job because you represent your company, that you have to kind of set some of your things aside to maintain your job. That's just part of the decorum of the situation. There's freedoms to wrap it up in your car in certain contexts, go ham.
Yeah.
But, outside of my house, in my neighborhood, I don't want you doing donuts with your fart box, waking me up. Like, that's not cool. Yeah. That's once your freedom affects other people, that's not freedom. And then it comes down to, well, are you forcing or compelling, compelling speech? And that's where the book goes. It's compelled speech, which so far, we don't have compelled speech in America. It's not a thing. I know a lot of people are mad about it. Well, it's my freedom of speech and blah, blah, blah. Right, yeah. Well, that's a misunderstanding of what freedom of speech means. It just means the government, is not going to tell you what you have to say what you can't say, what you can say, but it's private people are allowed. If you say something I don't like, I'm allowed to kick you out of my house. That's
right. Yeah. Yeah. Just
free
because
speech.
you have freedom to do something doesn't mean that
Right.
you can or should.
And so there's
Whatever that
nuance.
might be.
So hopefully we can get into the
Yeah.
nuance. And that's really what matters. I think nuance has been lost in the political discourse, and so everyone wants to pick teams. I'm a Democrat, Republican, I'm right, left. Like, let's just stop that and talk about the nuance, of how things are. There's context. Context matters. We do live in a society. So I'm kind of excited to dig into this. Although, for me, with my therapist yesterday, I was kind of talking about how Monday was really tough for me with some of the news and anticipating market crash and those sorts of things. So Monday was tough for me, kind of seeing that because I pay attention to the big things. And so it was tough for me, but I'm in a good place now. I'm just trying to lean into this. So I was worried reading this, like, am I going to be able to read this with how tough this is and how kind of triggered I am by authoritarianism but I think I'm taking it as an opportunity to really lean into that, look for the nuance, and become better at having a conversation across political views. I sat in a bar a few weeks ago with a guy with a Trump hat on, and it was honestly, I wasn't like, he was in our group. And so it was a little like, for me, it was kind of uncomfortable, because it's like, but then here's my word for 2025, my words for 2025. And that is, let them cut me off in traffic. Let them, you're doing dumb stuff. Let them, I'm going to defend my space and my family and just my own mental health. But, things outside of my control, one of which is what people think of me, what people think of the company I'm in, let them, I don't have time for that. So, I'm going to keep that in mind as I go through this book and just I'm going to lean hard into stuff that's hard to lean into.
Yeah.
And, hopefully we can learn a lot from this. I'm pretty excited.
Awesome, man.
Excellent. I am not giving homework this week because the next 3 weeks are bonkers. Basketball season's wrapping up. I'll have to go to a tournament in Vegas. I'll be on the road all next week for my day job. So it's going to be hectic. So no homework for John this week, except I'm going to try. We said last week, let's try to go to a movie by ourselves. I want to see The Brutalist.
Yeah,
I still want to do that. And I'm running out of time because I don't think it's going to be in the theater very long. So I'm going to try this. It's been 10 years since I've been to a movie by myself. And it's an interesting experience. I know it's way harder for you.
I don't think I've ever seen a movie by myself.
Yeah, I know it's way harder for you because you got 4 kids. And it's like, I got to maximize my time spent in that 2 hours, 3 hours by myself. That's a huge lift. I get it. But, maybe it's the matinee while the kids are in school. I don't know. Sneak away. So I'm going to see what I can do. But yeah, awesome. Episode 3. We're rolling. I've got notes out to some people for interviews. I'm trying to get some, everybody. It's just January, February is tough for a lot of these business leader types, but I'll keep cranking on interviews. So rock on, everybody.